Since it's all going to be driven by AI, everyone is going to be leveraging AI. There's going to be more AI engineers than creative-led people. And that's also kind of ties to the fundamental shift that I talked about. Even leaders cannot be left behind. You have to be involved every day in actually thinking about where this technology is taking us and getting their hands dirty. If we split the workforce in the AI age, we'll have these doers and directors. Now, think about the role of doers, where only the doers who are really good and skilled at the best in their craft are probably going to survive, who are still doing stuff and not directing stuff. And the other ones I think I can think of is the people who are able to leverage AI so much that they've almost become superhumans. This is time when you cannot really avoid being technical or knowing data and getting your hands dirty. So as I said before, this creative side of marketing has been glorified and people have built their careers around that, right? I mean, and this actually with the digital, there was some kind of uneasiness for people who came from that creative side, but it wasn't enough. And I think the fundamental shift that we'll see is that leaders now have to get comfortable with data and technology and AI to be able to actually succeed in the coming future.
I'm really excited for you all to listen to this episode with Jasmeet Sawhney. We talked about how AI is changing the world of marketing from a very practical and pragmatic point of view. So the things that we should be changing as doers and as leaders. And we get into some of the experiments we should be doing, some of his favorite tools. It's going to be a great listen for you. Some awesome people shouted out on this one as well. But check it out. Let us know what you're doing with AI to improve your marketing strategy and to be more creative. Hey everyone, welcome back to the OnBase podcast. I'm your host, Chris Moody, and today I'm very excited to have Jasmeet Sawhney with us to talk about marketing leadership in an AI-driven world. Jasmeet, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I love seeing a lot of mutual connections. That's always a good sign when we're checking LinkedIn. I like to start every single episode with understanding a little bit about what led you to what you're doing today. So tell us about the journey that brought you to what you're doing now.
Absolutely. It's been a little bit unconventional, I would say, from marketing standpoint, because I started in tech. I have a computer science degree. So I started in a product group developing as an engineer. I've been in the startup world forever and more, I would say, on environment. And that's what I really like about this environment, that it gives you the flexibility to move around, flexibility and opportunity to actually look into other roles that might be of interest to you. And I moved from product to business development to sales enablement and finally marketing, which I really thought that this is my home. And over time, the expertise I've been able to build has been at the intersection of this marketing, data analytics, and technology. And I never thought starting out that technology would be a great asset going into marketing. I think most people never think of marketing that way. And it actually became one of the biggest assets that I have being a marketing leader.
Awesome. Especially today. We're going to talk about that. Timing is perfect for us to be together. This morning, our CEO actually sent out AI principles to the entire company. And it was a lot of our rules and our guidelines and the nudge for every single person to be using AI to make our jobs better, and gave some specifications there and the ability to fail, right? Don't expect to be perfect, but we all need to embrace this. So the question I have is a very relevant one for me, but why should marketing leaders care deeply about AI's growing role in marketing today?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, AI has been around for a while. Right? It all started in like 1950s or so, and it became in the last 5 to 10 years. We've talked a lot about AI and how it's going to transform the business. What has happened in the last couple of years is with the LLMs and the Gen AI making it very real and unavoidable. Now, you just talked about how your CEO sent that email and, everyone should be using. And that is exactly what is happening. At an individual level, everyone I know is using AI to do their work. Now, the problem the business leaders face is how do you now take that and scale it at an operational level for the business, which is the big and complex problem that they're trying to solve. So now the change has been that it has become unavoidable. You cannot just have a wrapper or a label of something that you were doing under the hood the traditional way and just say, hey, we are using AI. We saw all of this in the last 5 to 10 years where things were labeled AI, but under the hood, you were just doing plain analytics. Right? And, we are in data analytics business, so we should know this, right? And we've seen this, but now it's unavoidable. If you don't do this, then your question, what's at stake? Now, you could take two views of this, right? I mean, there is this pessimistic view of saying, people are losing jobs and they're going to, be out of skills and, they'll not be in the workforce, which is true, which is scary. But I think the bigger thing that's at stake is that this is the biggest opportunity for our generation. If you don't leverage this opportunity, that's what's at stake. I mean, think about it. A small company can now compete with large, hundreds and thousands of people with just, few people and, 1,000 agents working for them. That's becoming real as we speak. So that gives you the level of opportunity that we have at this time. And if we don't use that, that's what I think from an optimistic side, that's what is at stake if we don't leverage that.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer. And it makes me think about the leaders, which you hit on this too, the scale aspect and getting every single person to embrace AI. How do you see AI fundamentally shaping the role of marketing leadership, especially if we think about alignment, collaborating with sales? There's always a data story, right? Garbage in, garbage out, all the things that you may hit on here. But what is going to change for marketing leadership?
I think this is time when you cannot really avoid being technical or knowing data and getting your hands dirty. So as I said before, this creative side of marketing has been glorified and people have built their careers around that, right? I mean, and this actually with the digital, there was some kind of uneasiness for people who came from that creative side, but it wasn't enough. And I think the fundamental shift that we'll see is that leaders now have to get comfortable with data and technology and AI to be able to actually succeed in the coming future. I'll take an example of if you are setting goals for your team, and I'm just talking about marketing goals, and there's talk about this multiplier effect. How do I even judge if it's that multiplier is 1.2 or is it like 10x or 20x or 5x? And if I don't have that understanding of how the process is going to change, because there's a lot of lift and shift, right? In today's world, if we think about implementing agent, most people are talking about, hey, how do we automate stuff that we are already doing? What people are not thinking about is your whole process is going to change as well. So if I don't have that technical understanding and deep understanding of how that's going to change my process, how do I even create my goals for my teams? What do I sign up for? So it's a fundamental shift in terms of understanding where the technology is taking us and then arriving at the strategy and the execution part of it to be able to lead a team today. That's what I think is going to be changing at the fundamental level.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you hit on that fundamental shift. And you also said lift and shift, which made me think a lot about my 20 years in marketing. And you've watched all these new tools and technologies come out. I think marketing, we get pretty good at them. And then there's a new one and we jump to the next one. So to me, I'm almost seeing like marketing automation, content marketing, social, and just boom, jump to the next, jump to the next, jump to the next. I think that transition for what's next and what's new, and even the shift to digital has been a challenge for marketing leaders in the past to make sure that everyone is still doing their jobs well, but staying ahead of the curve. I'm curious if there are some lessons that come from those shifts to digital and a lot of the evolution of marketing technology and sales technology that you've seen that we should apply to the transition to be more AI driven. So are there any learnings that you're thinking about that we all should pay attention to?
So it's a very interesting thing, because this is an active conversation. Everyone is thinking about, hey, how do we now transform our function, whether it's marketing, HR, whichever part of business you're in, with AI, right? And the first thing that people come up with, hey, let's hire an AI expert. And this is exactly what people did in the digital age. When digital marketing came around, people, the leaders at that time, they hired a digital specialist, digital expert, and made that as a function within marketing, only to see that over time everything became digital and that role became irrelevant. So I always say this, they did this because they wanted to save their jobs and just check the box and say, hey, we are digital now, right? And we saw the evolution that over time, as you just described, it's constantly changing. So if you do not have a digital process and people who are trained in digital, it's actually going to fail. So I think the biggest learning is don't just hire an AI expert. Yes, you will need technologists. You will need people who know that better than others, who can build agents and stuff like that. But you should always think about who are the people in your team who can actually bring you to the next level in AI. So bring the expertise within your existing team and embed AI within an existing team. And that's the better way to evolve than actually having that silo. And that's the one learning I would say, from the digital time, because that's what everyone did. And eventually they realized that was not sustainable.
I smirked when you were responding because when you were talking about digital marketing, that made me think about all the keyword stuffing you and I probably did in our resumes back in the day. And I remember, digital marketing, right, as a specialty. And
yes,
I didn't think about that when I was asking the question, but once I heard it played back, I was going, it really has happened quickly. Where in my head, we've always been digital, but that was something we put in resumes to match job titles and the director of digital marketing. So
exactly.
I hear you on that. You mentioned in your journey, both product marketing, and sales enablement. And my brain immediately goes to sales enablement, which, by the way, product marketing and sales enablement, I still think are two of the most challenging marketing functions, just in my personal opinion. So good on you for crushing both of those. How do we make sure that as leaders, we are training our teams to be ready for AI tools and processes? And the disclaimer I'll put on that, you hit on a very important point as well. You said that a lot of folks are trying to automate things and we're trying to get efficiencies. And I do totally agree with you. I don't think as many are thinking, hey, if we can automate those things, how can AI help us to be more strategic, more creative, more successful, beat our competitors at a higher rate? I think we've tackled efficiency a little bit. So if we think sales enablement across the board, how do we make sure our teams are embracing AI and using it the right way?
Yeah. So in the harsh part of this is not everyone is going to come along, which is sad and difficult. And this is what we saw during the internet age, because certain generation of people who could not come along and adapt became irrelevant. And that's the biggest fear of, I hope every leader, right? Because everyone wants to bring along their team. I think the most important thing is, as I said, you have to kind of understand what are the skill sets of people and where can you leverage them. You talked about strategy. You talked about, elevating how do we kind of elevate this creativity aspect of marketing? How do we, make the data better? All of these are specific areas where you have team members who are experts in certain things, right? And they may not be good at building agents. They may not be good at automating stuff, but they're good at, those specific things. So it's about providing those trainings and tools and having them adapt. It's going to be a slow evolution, no matter, how quick we want it to be. It's going to take some time for people to come along, but eventually people are using it every day. As long as you enable all of that, they're empowered and they're learning every day and they're on a track. So what I'm doing is, talking to the team and understanding which parts of business can they impact with AI. What are the use cases bottoms up? Because a lot of it, as we see with our customers as well, is kind of driven top down, saying, we want to automate these functions, these areas, these specific processes without understanding, does that even have the impact that you actually hope to achieve. Because people who are actually using these processes, running these processes, are the ones actually who can automate it the best. So having these bottoms up understanding of what are those areas that can be automated, and having the people involved who are actually doing that in that automation is actually going to be very useful. And when you talk about sales enablement, it's kind of, making sure now sales sees the impact of that. Because delivering a certain piece of content or an asset to them to take it to the customer is not going to cut the thing anymore, right? I mean, you come from the ABM space, right? I mean, it has to be really personalized. And AI gives us that power to be able to personalize it to the next level, which is, by the way, most companies still struggle with that personalization at a stakeholder level. You may personalize stuff at an account level, but now that is a new process that I talked about, which does not exist. Now AI can enable that. So how do you kind of now create these new processes with AI? I think that's kind of the journey we're going to be on.
Yeah, personalization is such a good one too, because the bar is high. I think you and I, if for us to open an email, and I looked over at my my email tab, for us to open an email, it has to be personal. It has to be relevant. It has to communicate value. If it feels like it was sent to 1,000 other people, there's no chance we're going to engage. And
Mhm.
a partner texted me earlier today and sent me a cameo video from a player from Duke basketball, which I'm a Duke fan and NC State fan too. But there was a lot of personal information in the cameo video from
Yeah.
Seth Curry. So Steph Curry's brother, but he played at Duke. He knew my story. And,
Yeah.
just the relationship building aspect of that, it was perfect, right? I mean, that is what we have to do.
And to that point, just getting you to open that email itself can be, really elevated with AI, because a lot of the marketers struggle with this sending an email and not getting any, the open rates like suck. So how do you kind of change that? And with all the data that you can have with, the new technologies that are coming in, that can actually improve, even because content is second step. How do you even actually get people to open it? So those are kind of the things, and there's going to be different channels. People have preference, you have learning about that. So there's a lot of personalization that can happen with AI.
Yeah. Well, you hit on the marketing multiplier earlier, which makes me go to ROI, marketing attribution, two things that have driven plenty of marketers insane over the years trying to get to those. What are the key opportunities that you see AI presenting to help solve some of those tricky challenges like proper attribution or measuring ROI?
Yeah. I think the biggest opportunity that I see there is being able to actually track the touch points, because the struggle that we have is attribution. And we have created like attribution models and so, but they all have some kind of flaws. They're never perfect. AI gives us the opportunity to be able to kind of track the complete customer journey. And you know, this is becoming real finally. We have talked about customer journeys forever, but now with AI, you're able to track every single email, not from the mailboxes that marketing controls, but all the mailboxes that are interacting with customers. That's powerful. And I think that's the kind of the opportunity of tracking touch points and creating customer journey is kind of the biggest win that we can see in attribution and measuring the ROI, because from the first touch point to now close, if you're able to see all the interactions, you can confidently say this is the marketing influence on this specific deal. And that's what did not exist before. And that's again going back to, creating new processes with AI and not just doing lift and shift. So that's kind of the, I'm really excited about that opportunity actually, on a personal and a business front, because that, marketing has now the empowerment to actually do that.
Absolutely. What about you talked about some will inevitably be left behind, and I think that has been a recurring theme in marketing, honestly, where sometimes folks are too specialized and not paying attention to how things are changing, or this is a fad and they don't catch up, and then boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
How should leaders reassess their teams and objectives and frameworks to stay competitive in this AI driven landscape?
So I think there are two ways to think about this, right? The first would be if we talk about doers and directors, right? If we split the workforce in the AI age, we'll have these doers and directors. Now, think about the role of the, doers. where only the doers who are really good and skilled at the best in their craft are probably going to survive, who are still doing stuff and not directing stuff. And the other ones I think I can think of is the people who are able to leverage AI so much that they've almost become superhumans. They would still have a lot of value in the ecosystem. Now, if you think about it, now the number of doers are going to go down because AI is going to pick up a lot of the doing stuff. And directors, now how do you now manage the directors? Because they swell. You cannot have that many directors doing stuff. So, of course, there's going to be new hierarchy of, this is again, some assumptions that I'm making here. There's going to be new hierarchy of directors, people who are actually managing work, whether it's AI driven work, whether it's the interpretation of that work, or, the people who are actually orchestrating and doing the strategy work. So those are kind of going to be the two buckets. That's one way of thinking about it, right? The other way to think about it is you'll have these creative led people who are like from the creative side, and they are leveraging AI to now elevate what they're able to come up with. And then there's engineering led people who have leveraging AI in the best way. So that's the other way to think about, thinking about the frameworks of teams. And my hypothesis is that, since it's all going to be driven by AI, everyone is going to be leveraging AI. There's going to be more AI engineers than creative-led people. And that's also kind of ties to the fundamental shift that I talked about, that, even leaders cannot be left behind. You have to be involved every day in actually thinking about where this technology is taking us and getting their hands dirty. So that's kind of the different ways of thinking about where this is going. And, if you want to structure it in that way.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny. A lot of times I feel like I'm unlocking better ways to use AI internally for work when I use AI personally, as a parent and coaching kids and, hey, what should we work on with baseball? Just all the ways, answer key for homework, just thinking of very specific things. But then what if we take some ideas of things they like and then turn that into meal suggestions and then the grocery list, just
Yes.
literally anything. And I do think there are times where we're a little rigid in our work personalities, and sometimes we don't take risk, and it's hard to take risk. So I'm curious how, right now I feel this urge to tell everyone creativity is the path forward. We have to be more creative. That's a way to differentiate. How do we fight that internal resistance to push for unconventional marketing bets and get permission to do that?
So the biggest thing that everyone runs against is the risk of failure, because most leaders are concerned, especially in large corporations where things are not that nimble. Everyone is very protective of their role and their teams. So nobody wants to fail. And I think what I typically, I'm kind of running against this kind of risk first kind of mindset. I think one way to think about this is you kind of paint a picture of what if you did not do this? What's at stake? And kind of build that scenario as well. So now they have both sides. Like, you do this because we think this is going to drive these outcomes. And by the way, there's, risk in everything. And now let's look at what if we don't do this scenario and think about what risks do we have if we don't do this, and come to a point where we see, okay, maybe risks are higher on this side, and, you need to take this unconventional bet because you'll have to move forward with some of these transformations that are happening. I think the good thing is, and this is again going back to what you just said, we are experiencing efficiencies and productivity gains in our own lives, in everything. So now everyone has experienced that. So it has become very difficult to argue that this will not work. The big question is, how would it work in the complex work environments? Because, we have all the control on our individual lives and, work that we do at an individual level. But when you scale it to the team level, to the business level and function level, that becomes more complicated. So that's what the argument, we need to build on. How can it actually transform at a function level? I think the key lies in understanding specific use cases where you would have immediate ROI, kind of low hanging stuff, and then build your case from there. And when I talked about, having this AI expertise within the team, is because you need to have deep process experience to be able to actually now find these high impact use cases that will actually bring the ROI that the leadership is looking for. And that's kind of, where it's basically a combination of understanding the expertise, the processes, and bringing the AI to actually help with that to kind of, win over the argument.
That's perfect. You answering that just made me think of a way I'm going to use AI to help me before our next marketing leadership offsite. I'm not going to tell the team though, but I will document what I do. And then after I present, I'll show them how I did it. So your exact description just unlocked something for me there. Thank you for that. We have one more question before we jump into kind of the lightning round, really fast ones. And this one, we're compiling all the answers for a survey. The challenge here is you can only respond with one thing. What is the single biggest challenge in B2B marketing today?
I think it's still measuring ROI. That for all the other things that we face, measuring ROI still is the biggest challenge. And that's why I'm really hopeful AI is going to solve that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you can write a book on that too. If you get there first, just go ahead, own it, use AI to be your ghostwriter and go for it.
Yeah.
All right, we have a couple quick questions. We love asking these every single time. It gives us great compilations and lists that we can pull together. The first, what are your favorite tools and technologies that you're using today?
So, we're talking about AI, right? So there's a lot of tools out there. And I think there's kind of, there's time consuming actually to pilot and experiment with everything. But I love using Claude for my own content. We are experimenting with VO, the Google's LLM for media. Lovable is amazing for designs and stuff. Believe it or not, I'm coding after like 25 years, 20 years or 25 years. Building agents is really fun. And Figma and others where basically they help you kind of build these agents and apps. It's really fun thing to do. So those are some of the things that we are working on. It's very exciting.
Great suggestions there. What about good reads? And I am very generous with this one. It can be book, blog, newsletter, podcast, video. What are some of the best sources of content for you?
So I like Yuval Noah Harari. His book on Nexus. The history of information networks is amazing. I think that's a great book. Podcast, I listen to a few podcasts, some in marketing, some in non-marketing, but marketing ones, Marketing Against the Grain by HubSpot is great. But I think lately what I've found really helpful is as I've gone into kind of trying to build these agents, the YouTube videos that are out there by people who are actually doing that stuff, they're amazing tutorials. So I've been watching those a lot lately. So those are some of the things.
Awesome. Love that. Yeah, we do a lot of that internally too. TikTok and Instagram have led to great product developments. I've talked to the product team on that too, because there are creators who are showing you exactly how to do all the things they're doing. So that's
exactly
great suggestion there. What about for people? Who inspires you in the B2B space?
So Mohan Sawhney is a professor at Kellogg. He happens to be my cousin as well. He's always a mentor and inspiring figure. Dharmesh from HubSpot is amazing. How he has cut across from strategy to culture and to, touching on marketing stuff. And he's a CTO. So it's like amazing to, see his insights and perspectives. And I've always been a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. So those are kind of the names that come to mind.
Yeah, those are really good. I like the commonality of ability to take risk of the folks you listed there, and you go from Kellogg professor to HubSpot and such a great growth story, and then Gary V. That's just go, just do.
Yes.
So, yeah, great thread to follow there. And then the most important question of all: how can everyone get in touch with you after this episode?
LinkedIn. It's easy these days to connect on and LinkedIn and exchange messages, and I think that a lot of common threads that we can find. I mean, you mentioned we have so many common connect. That's the beauty of these networks. LinkedIn is the easiest way.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure. I learned a ton. I'm actually going to go use AI to help me get ready for this offsite based on this conversation. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chris. This has been fun. And of course, I learned a lot as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.